first thing we're going to do is open up another window behind you, which is your Canvas window for DM 134. Go to the assignment page cross plot. And I would like you to, first we will talk about the cross plot template, which you see. And then I want to actually open the script. We're going to read the first scene. Okay, so open the script. If you open the icon, it will keep it in the page. And if you want it to be open in a new tab, just click the underlined version and it will open in a new tab, and it will probably be bigger for you. Okay? We're going to talk about how to read a script. Just want to make sure everybody's with us. Okay. And so before we start, let's look at, I'll review what the week is going to look like for us. And I will try to, before Wednesday, get all of the assignments about redrawings up, because they're going to be regular. They will be weekly, and I will upload that information so that you have that all now. I'll open all of those assignments. And that way, if you feel like, oh, I'm in redrawing mode, I'm going to just keep doing that, great. And you can just submit, I'll have them submitted as soon as I open them. And then the deadlines, of course, will be different. And I'm going to screen share just for 1 sec so that you see what I'm looking at. Okay, so for week 3, and you will have, each week will be maybe visible. I'm not sure I'll publish it, but you'll be able to see what the topic is for the week. This is going to be finding the play. You have assignment that we talked about last week, which is script breakdown. We'll talk about that. It is due on Wednesday. And I want to make sure that everyone's very clear. Here is your redrawing assignment. We've had extensive discussion on redrawings in the lecture, I don't know, either the first or second lecture. And so I want you to just take a quick look at that so that you can see I have put in a piece. This is not from your book, but the first one is Redrawings Ancient Dress. First male and female figure in ancient dress. Use the Laver book for reference. 10 sets of hand-drawn redrawings over the course of the semester. See the redrawing page. So do you guys, you know how to look for your redrawing page, right? That is, we go back to modules. You can see that how to complete a redrawing assignment. Okay, so that will give you all the information regarding redrawing that you need. And also you see your proportionate male and female figures, okay? And I'm going to go back to my assignment. This gives you the description, 10 vocabulary words. I am going to, I'm going to put in multiple vocabulary words for each assignment so that you can actually just pick and choose the words. I will provide more than 10 for male and female, and you will need to identify those items on the sketch that you do. So in this particular situation, above, I've indicated what you're looking at for a description. So you want to look at details in primary research. We talked about that already. So I'm holding you to that. What is primary research? Those images that existed as contemporary to the subject time period. So if we're doing the ancient time period, you want to have those images that existed then. What are those? Artworks, sculpture, vases, bas-relief, wall paintings, paintings. Later we get photographs, okay? So this is Egyptian. Above, and I've given you a description, you see an image from the Dendra temple in Mamisi. Ihi, here in the middle, is represented as a young boy who is naked, although he's well adorned. You can see, looking carefully at all of his headwear, his side braid, his arm bracelets, his jewelry. One of his hands is seen holding a finger to his mouth, while in second he holds a sistrum, which is a rattle made of bronze. So here he's holding the rattle. He's shown wearing the sacred menant necklace and a white and red peshent crown. Here's the crown, which is decorated with the uraeus. So all of these words that you don't recognize, you can highlight them, you can Google them, you can also look in your book to just see them. They're very, specific. So you can see that even if they are wearing, what they are wearing is rendered as transparent, okay? So that's just a background. You don't need to pick Egyptian. There's many other things you can pick before we get to Greek and Roman. You can be Etruscan, it could be Viking, it could be even before that. So 10 points for each of these assignments. So 10 points for male for the 2, 5 points each. You'll upload it as a document. It's due, it's available from today. It's due on the 27th and until the 29th. So this is where you upload it, okay? So you get 5 points for drawing it and labeling it. All right. Now, we don't really need to have a lot of discussion about those because I will put those in. Every single redrawing will be the same. Any questions on that? Okay. You have another assignment for this week, which will be due on Monday, which is finding the play through the collage. We'll talk about that. And today the lecture is going to be the role of costume in theater. All right.
I did have a question about the assignment. So
the redrawing assignment?
Yeah, the redrawing assignment. So both male and female.
One each.
One each from like that era, that time era or something?
Yeah, look at, and here's what it says in your assignment. Look carefully. Use labor book chapter 1 for reference.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let me just stop the share for a sec. I'll get my labor book out. So remember that one of the reasons why I wanted you to have this book is because there's excellent images in here. All right, so this would be an excellent Egyptian image. But the thing is it gives you color images so that you can actually see color. There's a male and female Egyptian. Okay. Here are another group of musicians. And in Babylonian, okay. So in your book, when I give you a reference and I say, use your book because this gives you a very specific time frame. So you're picking from the time frame in chapter 1. You can do one male, one female. They do not need to be from the same period. But anywhere from Etruscan, Babylonian, Egyptian, anything that he mentions in chapter 1 before you get to Greek and Roman, okay? So it would primarily be Cretan, Babylonian. Here's a great, another Greek goddess, very famous image. Okay, so there's a lot of information there.
Where did you find the vocabulary words at?
They are in your text. He mentions vocabulary. He talks about the clothing. So I would like you to sort of struggle with that for one day, and then I will post vocabulary words tomorrow on that same page. That way you can just double check what you have identified, okay? I like you guys to try and figure it out first. So just do the drawing first and then read this. This encourages you to read the text so that you will actually get the information that you need. And I'll post the vocabulary words.
Okay. Will that be tomorrow or day after tomorrow?
Well, it's due the gift.
Okay.
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 So don't wait. Don't wait. Do the redrawings, and that's been posted for since last Thursday. So you could have been working on them all weekend. Get used to checking your Canvas site every day. If there's something that you maybe missed, or if there's something that you did not read yet, or any of those kinds of things. Oh no, sorry. It's the Crosspot that's been posted and Diego has already turned it in, but many of you haven't. That's why we're going to talk about it today. Okay. Before we move on to anything, any questions about the redrawings?
I have a question. So for the redrawings, would you prefer us to do the male and female on separate pages or within like the same page?
I think it's, I've given you a 9 by 11 by 17. They need to be a certain amount tall. They can be on the same page if you want to photograph them that way. It might be easier if they're individual. It's up to you. If you're doing them in a sketchbook and you're keeping them together so that you kind of have a chronological thing happening, then it's your choice. Just make them generous. I think they need to be 8 inches and tall so that you're not scrunching them all up. Don't make tiny images. It's very too hard. Okay. All right. Any other questions about that? And I should make sure that I did actually say that.
So for this assignment, we can't do digital, right?
None of the redrawing assignments you can do. All redrawings are not done.
Sorry, you cut out really bad for me.
So all of the redrawings should be done by hand.
Okay.
And I believe it's set that in the redrawing page. Okay. It says hand drawn redrawings over the course of the semester. 1 male, 1 female, 8 to 12 inches tall. Work in your human proportions. Okay.
Well, but hand drawn can still be on digital if you use a digital pen, but you want it on physical paper, right?
As long as you're hand drawing it, when you say digital, that opens up a wide range of things like capturing a figure and then just sticking it on there. So if you're going to hand draw it on a tablet or a page that way, we can absolutely consider that, as long as you have hand drawn it with your stylus.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it can be digitally produced, but hand drawn, if that makes sense. Is that clear for everybody? Okay, I mean, please absolutely ask for any questions and clarification. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for bringing up any question. I can't I can't guess what you're going to ask. So always, it's really hard to be very clear in this format, so I'm trying. So thank you for helping the clarification. Okay.
Hey, Pam, I have a quick question. Is it 10 vocabulary words per man and then 10 for woman?
That's correct. Now, some may duplicate.
Okay.
Okay. So we have an item that works for a male and works for a female, but it might be rendered slightly differently because let's say it's an arm ornament, and there will be a specific thing, or there will be a discussion of the image that's on it, like a scarab. So you can say gold wide arm ornament with scarab engraved or whatever is engraved. Okay. Like on this page, we can see maybe this arm ornament and this one are similar. This looks like a series of precious or semi-precious stones probably held together with wire. And sometimes you'll look in your research and you'll actually figure out what it is. And you're going to have to make some guesses about what you think it is so that you can look for things.
Okay, so we literally can pick any page out of the book and then do a reproduction of it and then label it what the vocab words are?
That's one way you can do it.
Okay, perfect. Anything out of chapter 1 we can draw. That's
Yeah.
a male and a female.
Interestingly, you have several male-female pairs there, right?
Yeah.
So you can also draw one from one era and one from another era.
Okay.
One sort of region. Like if you want to do that Crete woman, the Crete goddess, and then you want to do the Babylonian man, that's the statue, that's fine.
Okay.
Make sure to clearly label which era they're from. And you know what? That's something that needs to be on the page that you need. Part of it is you have to label the redrawing. So that is part of your vocabulary, is the actual, if you're going to say Egyptian, that's part of it, and try and center it. So I'm sorry if is my voice cutting out a lot right now?
No, I mean, kind of. It's okay though. I understood what you said.
I'm getting feedback. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay. So today we'll go on to this role in theater and the play through the collage. Okay, is everyone ready to work on the cross plot now? Please open up your cross plot page and your script. So I have my script open on another page. Okay, I'm stopping share. And look at your cross plot, every person. Okay. So we talked about this last week. Let's have a group discussion on this and we'll just go around the room. Colby, what are you seeing?
What were you saying? You were echoing pretty bad.
What do you see on the, and if this gets worse, we'll take a little break and I'll go to my office and see if I get a better
Are you
reception.
asking me about the cross plot or the script?
Cross plot. I'm
Okay.
what
So
you
I have a,
on the template that's exposed on your screen.
yeah, so I have a grid that's open.
Okay, good. That's enough.
Okay.
Yes.
Diego.
On the I'm actually using my phone, so it's a little different. So so on the cross plot, what are we supposed to describe again, or tell?
Say something different than Colby.
What was the question again? Like, I can't. Oh. Hold up. Oh,
Your mic is muted.
it's muted.
We can't hear you.
Does this help you out?
Yeah, I have it pulled up on my on my phone right now.
Okay.
Right now I can see it.
So what do you see?
Just
Tell me one thing.
So the markings for each for each scene that they're in, for
X's.
specific, the X's represent the character being present for said scene.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Cara.
So on the left-hand column, column A is a list of the characters' names that
Correct.
are in the play. I did have a question though. Were there some missing from this list?
Okay.
Because I found a couple and then there's like one who I didn't find at all in the play.
Okay, hold back a thought for just a second.
Okay.
Okay, just hold that thought. All right. Okay, Kit, what do you see?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I see that they also put the location at the top row.
Mhm.
And so that way you can tell, like, not only like is that character in that scene, but you could also tell exactly where that scene is placed.
Right. And thank you very much. Cassandra? Anything?
So I see that like on the top upper hand corner, sequentially, we have a division for each different scene, and it breaks down numerically and like specifically like what happens and what's the main event that occurs. So there's like a organization to that for us to break down characters.
Cassandra's given us the whole 9 yards. Yay. And Josephine?
Sorry. Yeah, I see the pages.
Excellent. So the pages are really important so that you can locate what you're talking about. Okay. And does anyone have anything else to add? Go ahead, Sue.
I have a question.
Yeah, they overlap because I think they overlap because of the changes, what's happening on that page.
Right. For example, page 6, 7, page 7, page 7 through 10.
Right.
Something like that. So there's some sort of overlap, or there's a very, very short scene right here. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And question, Colby?
That was kind of my question. Like, how do you, like, how is it, it's broken up per page, but how do you give it
Right.
the value? It's based on the scene?
It's based on the scene or based on what happens. Okay. Anyone, anything else about just what we're looking at? So Cara, you should see one thing because I can tell you've started to work on it, or Diego.
I did mine, but the one thing I couldn't do was I was having problems reading the script and figuring out where the scene was located.
So I tried to give you these page numbers to help you out.
Right. And that did. And I know where the scenes start and stop, but for some reason, maybe I just missed it. I didn't see, like, it doesn't say, does it? I didn't think it said like location outdoor of house.
Right, right. Okay. So very, very good. Diego, do you notice anything? Right here.
About what? About anything specifically?
How about this page compared to the script?
About this compared to the script, you kind of have to, figure out the location more in your own, like, what's
Okay.
in the script, because it does specifically tell you like where it's at.
Right.
You kind of have to guess it a little bit. It is implied, in the script where they are at. I mean, through dialogue and stuff, but I think usually a script would tell you like where it's taking place and stuff.
Not always.
I don't know.
It doesn't always tell you. So that's why it's a really good script to look at. Anything else about this page? I'll tell you a couple things that I have noticed. Anybody? Okay. So a couple things about this page are, notice that this has some slashes around this guy right here. And Ruick. One reason why those are there is because after I went through a script, and this goes to Kara's discussion of the script, after I went through the script that I was given, because we're now on our 4th or 5th script of exactly the same thing with slight changes, this character has been cut. So no matter where he appears on the line, he's going to be cut. That is not you don't have to worry about that, okay? We're going to go through the first scene and we're going to fill this in. But what I want you to do is notice that this should say character up here. All the characters should be listed. So if you have the doorman may have two names. Maybe you have him by a different name. The inspector guild.
So the extra ones I had were someone named Powell. And I didn't know if he was called something else. And then the other one was at the end, Loy, L-O-Y.
Okay.
Yeah, there are certain characters that don't appear in that list of
Yeah.
characters on there.
So
And then
That kind of.
I think I have Slattery I couldn't find, and I may have missed it, but
yeah, he's there.
okay.
But that's okay. Let me tell you something very interesting about this. When I meet with the director with this list, I often have characters that the director doesn't have, because the director has not divided the script up in quite the same way. And then we'll look through, and indeed, I'm only going to list characters that I read, and they've maybe done a different kind of reading than I have. So this discussion is very valid and happens every single time. And then there's something else that prompts a discussion here, which is when it says newsboys S, what does that ask? What does that prompt you to ask?
How many?
How many? Because if it's one, it's very different than if there are 8 of them running around saying extra, 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 right? So this is a way that we can ask questions very specifically. And when they say, well, I don't see Slattery, and you can go right over to where you've indicated, and this is why this is blank. You need to find them and fill them in. And you can say, well, on page between 11 and 24, Slattery is there. And then you can quickly go to that section and say there's Slattery. So for example, let's go to Loy. Let's go to the script. I'm going to open the script now and let me know. Oh, I thought I opened it.
I was a little bit confused about what you meant by he slashed, or like, what were you saying? Are you saying Rurik?
This thing right here?
Yeah.
Okay. I put that in there because after I made this, the director removed that character.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense.
But you guys have the character, so just make an X wherever that character appears.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about it, but I just wanted to give you, there are ways to indicate things on this chart that are code just for myself.
Mm.
And then there are more characters here than there will be actors.
Okay.
And I'm going to do a second breakdown, which will be by actor name over here with layers of characters put in.
Would you start, so let's say that the director like wants to include another character, because I know that in a lot of community theater productions where there's like a lot of different people, like sometimes they like write in more characters, like maybe they'll I don't know, put someone else in there. Would you do a cross plot for that added character?
Okay.
Like an extra or something?
First of all, that's a really good question. And the first question I ask is, does that increase my budget?
I wonder. I haven't ever asked the costume.
I have contracted to, so let's talk about costume design. I've contracted to do this design based on the characters that are in the script. So if you're now adding a character, are you increasing the budget? And then sometimes, unless they've talked about that in advance, they'll say, oh, maybe that's not such a good idea. Or, or maybe they're just going to say, well, yeah, it's 10 newsboys. Right?
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of ways to talk about that particular question. So we're going to go through and also we have to see where those can be in the script.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if they're in a taxi cab, you really can't put any more people in there.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, you kind of have them, by the neck when you do a plot like this, because you really can understand every single scene. And that helps immensely in in helping control the variables, because in costume we have massive number of variables.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I wanted to point out before we move on is that, you know, some of these people will be removed, and they will be, and I want to, but please don't worry about it for the assignment. I'm just bringing that up because I will be doing 2 or 3 or 4 of these, and I'll date them up here, and every single one will be, you know, revision 1, revision 2, revision 3. Often there's multiple revisions. And once we get a cast, there will be multiple revisions, because let's say I'm going to have Bob play the doorman and play Jorgensen and play dispatcher. So then I'm going to change all these around. And that's why this is so fabulous, because I can just highlight this row, move it so that Bob has all 3 characters under his name. Whereas before we had spreadsheets, we were doing all that by hand. Every single time we're trying to update the crossplot so we could have a discussion, you know? So it has really helped us significantly in that way. Let's look at the script. So please open your script.
Real quick, I have another question.
Yes, absolutely.
So this crossplot is with the thought of having costume design be like, it's for the costume designer, right?
It is costume centric.
Okay, because I have done cross-plots for stage management and stuff, and they kind of look a little different.
Yep. And often you do entrance and exits, you do something else. We do it to facilitate character discussion, costume change discussion. And when we're working with when I work with a professional stage manager, then we mash our 2 plots together. But remember that you're doing this in isolation first. You're not doing this with any other party. This is what you bring to the table for your first discussion. And then you can have a discussion about where does that scene actually end, right? And then some things, for example, when you're doing a stage management plot and you have characters walking in the background that are not indicated on here, then you have to let costumes know that those characters will be in that scene, and then they can add them to their plot wherever they appear. See what I mean?
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. The one other thing that I was trying to get you to notice about this plot is it doesn't go up to page 46. Yours does, but I just was taking a screenshot to try and give you a quick visual of how this works so we could have a discussion. And it doesn't go all the way up to the end of the page. That's why I wanted you to notice that. I do get them all on one page. That's really important to me. When we have like, I guess maybe last year or the year before, whatever, it seemed like we were doing these plays that were just insane. And we'd have like 25 scenes in Act 1. So then I'd have an Act 1 and an Act 2 page. Okay, let me stop the share. Did you guys open up your script? Yeah, you got it open? Okay. So we can look at the script. And I thought I opened it, but somehow I'm not finding it on my page. So I'm going to open mine, because it gives it a bigger sense. So we can do this 2 ways. We can work from a screen share. You can work from your own, and then we also can see each other, which I think is kind of nice. What do you think? Voting for screen share the script, thumbs up, reaction. Give me your reaction shots. Okay. Voting for look at your own script. Oops, sorry, just a second.
The thumbs up don't disappear in time. For us.
Okay, so let's start again. Thank you for that.
It might be better to use the yes or no thing in the chat, or there's chat reactions or something. Participants page.
Find in their participant window. I think it's in your participant window. It's in a different place for me. You can do yes or no. Does everyone see that?
Suddenly I don't. Yeah, it's
Hey,
really,
welcome to my world.
this is weird.
Okay, it might be at the bottom of your screen under reactions. Sometimes it's down there, and sometimes it's under participants.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Okay.
Got it.
So what I'm going to ask now is please give me a yes to screen share the script. We're going to be reading it aloud. Okay, and please give me a, okay, excellent. You can give me a no on screen share the script. I'm confused. Somebody gave me a yes on screen share, but they didn't do it before. So Sam, is that a no? You don't want to screen share the script?
No, I've had yes the entire time.
Okay, so I have 3 yes and I have 5 no's. So the no's have it. So I'm assuming that all the no's, that means what we can do is we can have the Zoom open and you're looking at your script. So Diego, is that hard for you on your phone? You're muted.
Yeah, I can yeah, switch between tabs really quickly. It's not a problem. Yeah.
Okay, super. All right, so starting at the beginning and keeping in mind our cross plot. The Thin Man, it's the title. Who would like to read Kennedy?
I can. It's one line.
Thanks, Cara. Kennedy.
Hollywood, California, Sunday, February 16th.
Okay, MFX. All right. So what does that mean?
Question.
Okay, let's go on. Who
Musical.
wants to read Ruick, the character that has now been cut? Diego, you want to read him?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Lux Radio Theater presented from its new home on Hollywood Boulevard, Hollywood, California. Lux presents Hollywood. Such great personalities such as William Powell, how do you pronounce the name?
Myrna.
Myrna Loy,
Oh, yeah.
W.S. Van Dyke, James Seymour, Minna Gombel, Porter Hall, and many others will take part of this presentation sent to you by the makers of Lux Toilet Soap, the beauty soap of the stars. Appearing before a distinguished Hollywood audience, Mr. Powell, Miss Loy, and a cast of 18 great players present that play that has broken box office records from coast to coast, The Thin Man. And as producer tonight, we present the director who did The Thin Man on the screen, together with triumphs such as Nani Marietta Trederhorn, Rosemarie, I Live My Life, and countless other smash pictures. Mr. W.S. Van Dyke, Mr. Van Dyke.
So that means you're introducing, you said, you know, and other smash pictures, Mr. W.S. Van Dyke, and then you gesture to Mr. Van Dyke, and then SFX applause. Okay, what does that mean? Yeah.
Sound
Does it mean
effects.
sound
Yeah.
effects?
Sound effects. Okay, so these FX are all some kind of an effects. And this is an applause. Not only is there an applause sign, but there is an applause sound. This is a radio play. So this is not done on a stage. This is the Lux Radio Theater. So if we look at the cross plot quickly, and now I am going to screen share for a sec. Okay. Let's see. Oh, dang it. I'm in a weird, sorry, I've done something weird. So if we look at the screen share, and you look up at the top, it says takes place in a studio. So this is actually a play that we're going to do. It will be a radio studio on the Garvin stage, filmed for our audience. So get the layers of complexity there. Our audience will be watching it on YouTube, actually Vimeo. They will be watching a radio play on the Garvin stage. Now, when this was published, you would have just listened to it through your radio and had no visuals whatsoever. But you would have heard all of those sound effects, like the applause. And that then tells me that on our list of characters, because we will be seeing this, that we need to add a sound effects person. Okay?
So then for location of each scene, is it all in the studio?
It will all be in the studio. But why
So,
does that matter to us?
well, it matters because if technically they're in a squad car, it doesn't really matter because we're only going to see the studio radio show.
Or to see the actor.
Huh?
So this is, now we're getting, hold on to that, Kara, you're jumping.
Okay.
Right. But I want to talk two things about character. So on our character list, we need to add sound effects. The sound effects technician, right? FX tech. Also, your question about Powell and Loy. Dick Powell plays Nick and Myrna Loy plays Nora. So when you get Powell and Loy at the end of your script, they are referring to the actor in their personal actor mode instead of their character mode. So that's one person, right?
Well, can you repeat that like one more time? I'm having a hard time understanding that idea.
No problem. And welcome to costume. There are no easy answers, I'm telling you. It's all really like, okay. So we're doing a radio play.
Yes.
Nick is played by Dick Powell. And we got that in our script. We're going to go here for a second. You're going to look at my screen. And let me just get a little bigger for you. Is that okay for everybody?
Yes.
Is that better than what we were doing before?
Well, I have my script open anyway, looking at it on the page. So it's just the same.
Here we have we have Kennedy, who is the announcer. All right. So that's a person announcing our location. And what do we have here? A time. We have a date. And that can go up at the top left. We know it's February 16th, which is 2 days after Valentine's Day. Hollywood, California. It's not going to be beach weather, even though we're in California, right? All right, we're going to see how this character is repurposed, but for you guys, you just give them a little check mark on that first scene. Such great personalities as William Powell, Myrna Loy, and then here's how we know they're Nick and Nora. Mr. Powell and Miss Loy and a cast of 18 great players. Now, if you've read this, you know that Nick and Nora are the biggies. And you could have looked up the movie, and they were in the movie, okay? So at the end of this play, when there's a character that's called Powell, it is William Powell now being himself instead of being Nick Charles, instead of as the character. So he's saying goodnight to the audience as himself. He's stepped out of his character mode. Does that make sense, Colby?
Yeah, it makes sense. So do you do but the cross plot is based on the character, not the actor, right? No.
Well, okay. So going back to what I said at the beginning is when I get the actors cast,
Yeah.
I have to put every single role the actor's playing by actor, because then I will have multiple roles per character.
Okay.
So you can do Nick/Powell if you want.
But if they have a different costume or something, then it doesn't matter? Or
Okay. Now let's talk about costume for a minute because Cara brought that up. So it's a radio play. Has anyone looked up radio plays? What do they look like?
They don't look like anything usually.
They're just the studio setting, like recording.
If we were doing a traditional radio play, and I will actually give you a research image of that. If you were doing a radio play, I'm trying to find it, you would be seeing the interior of a studio and I'll show you what that looks like. Oh, la, 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 la. Okay. I'm trying to find, oh, here we go. Okay. So here is an interior of a studio. And not only then are you researching the time frame, but you're also researching what does an interior of a studio look like. Here are people doing the War of the Worlds as a radio play, which would be just to be heard on your radio. So this is the director. Here's people reading their scripts, doing different kinds of things. His foot's on the chair. It's probably for a reason. One microphone here. These three people are reading into one microphone. Okay. Now I'm going to show you what an sound effects person looks like, or a sound effects, a possible sound effects setup. Oh, dang it. Sorry, I picked up, I have way too many screens open. Okay. And this is a really beautiful picture. So the War of the Worlds piece was a little bit too late for our time period. What time period are we in? Do we know? We know it's February 16th, but do you know what year it is?
Is it the 1930s?
Yeah, it's 1934. So, you know, in order to find out what year, you might have to look up when the movie was, because we know the movie just preceded this. But look at these two sound effects guys, and there's two of them. Then you think, whoa, are there going to be two of them? So, and then how do they look, and how are we going to distinguish them for the audience who's now going to be looking at all of this stuff on a theater stage? Okay, so they're going to be looking at actors around microphones with sound effects in the background, with a director, sound booth, I don't know, like somebody that's recording. So the audience is going to be our Vimeo audience. And if we were doing this in person, by the way, we have done a radio play. So there's a very famous one. It's a Wonderful Life, a radio play. So it begs the question of, how did they arrive at the theater to do their part, right? They are an actor. But even if you look in War of the Worlds, there are a few things that people picked up to play characters. So because we have a visual audience, we need to help the audience understand who these characters are, particularly if we have one person playing multiple characters, so that they understand there's a change between character. And for example, when they change location. So if the person who's probably a somewhat utilitarian character playing Slattery, playing newsboy, playing cab driver, puts on a hat that is a cab driver hat, possibly a coat or an emblem, and holds his hands like this, we know they're in the cab. Okay, so location does matter, and it will be indicated through costume. And that's how the audience is going to know and reinforce where they think the play is taking place. Okay. So we're going to do a drawing on the last hour of class, or we can work on cross-plot. There's two things. So I want to finish this discussion so that we can go on to talk about the role of costume in theater. Everybody ready to move on, or any questions so far? So we've read one paragraph. So those of you who just think like, you know, costume, just put on your pants one leg at a time. And trust me, that is what many people think. Many directors think that. Many theater managers think that. And they think, well, I get dressed every morning, so it can't be that hard. Well, let's really think about the costume. And this is what separates the marginal ones from the great ones, okay? So screen share the script or go back to your own script. What is your preference? Okay, hearing nothing, we're going back to our own script. Okay, so we are on SX sound effects applause. And then Van Dyke, who is the producer, remember, is going to give this long introduction. Hello, everyone. Well, it's a great scene at the Lux Theater, Radio Theater tonight. In our audience, and he lists all these illustrious, famous stars that he has in the audience. And who's going to play the Thin Man and what it's about. So this is where you discuss and you find out that William Powell and Myrna Loy, who were in the movie A Romance Between a Man and Wife, William Powell and Myrna Loy played the parts, and how they played them beautifully, because Powell was just Powell, Loy was Loy, both of them cracking up. So they had a lot of fun doing it. Here's the thing that's really interesting. There's nothing that says William Powell. There's no like little list that says William Powell is playing Nick. It's not that easy. You have to figure stuff out on yourself. But so here we go with William Powell as Nick Charles and Myrna Loy as Nora in The Thin Man. Here they come, Bill Powell and Myrna Loy. Okay? And then Van Dyke is setting the scene. So you know you're in a cafe. And I'm going to have to pause for 1 second. I apologize. I have a child at the dentist and they're calling me.
I don't think
Okay.
so.
So I know it's always very interesting when you have the same name as either a character in the play or as one of the actors that made this play very famous. It's very interesting.
Mm.
So, all right. I just want to I have something prepared I'd like to talk about as well. So let's talk about scene division. Van Dyke, who is the producer and also kind of the narrator, who will be folded, Kennedy and Van Dyke will be folded together, says, we're in a fashionable cafe, the Montmartre. So you could put cafe. And now in the story, it's Christmas Eve. We know it's February 16th, but now it's Christmas Eve. The well-appointed dining room, we know we're in a dining room. So I bring this up because think about how complex all of this is. The audience is going to be looking at things, and I suspect there might be the actors may come in, certainly during that introduction part. Now, I'm making this up, right? I'm making this up based on experience. We don't have a cast yet. We haven't had auditions yet. And I haven't talked to the director about how she sees this, and she'll create that once she gets the cast. So I know that. So I'm trying to, in advance, think about how's this going to look? Does she want a hint of Christmas Eve? Will there be a little touch of red? Will somebody add a little red thing? Will they add a red scarf? Will they add something? Because the actors are going to come in as themselves on February 16th. But in a radio studio, there would be a variety of props for them to pick up or touch or handle. maybe a hat, maybe a scarf, maybe gloves, maybe some other kind of thing. So I want to think about those things that can quickly delineate character and help the audience understand location, time, and time period, and where are we and what the character's about. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful. But you can see there's a lot of information that's on the page that you have to grab. And it's every word becomes important. So then we have our characters, Van Dyke, Dorothy, Nick. So we're talking about Dorothy Wynant here. And they have a conversation. They're in the dining room. And we go on. And here comes Joe the doorman. So some of you may have put Joe, some of you may have put doorman. And we also have special effects dog barking. Nora comes in. Asta. Asta's the name of the dog. And how many of you put the dog down as a character? Because I just got an email that said, oh, maybe we'll have a puppet play Asta. So again, yet another complexity. So you just keep your ears open to anything that's a possibility. Joe the doorman. I chose to put him as doorman because that's more descriptive about what he's doing. And again, this would be a way we could indicate to the audience through a hat or a vest that the doorman is here, and maybe he's going to nod or something to her. And the dog is supposed to be very funny. You have to take it outside. It's all right, Joe. It's my dog. It's my wife. Okay. And then there's a joke in there. Okay. And then Dorothy, off mic, meaning that she is further away from the microphone so that it sounds like she's further away from Nick Charles. Andy is Dorothy's fiance. You may want to marry those two together. Diego, question.
Since I already did this assignment, we're supposed to like make the whole thing like by hand, like again, because what I did when I completed the assignment was I took that thing that was already I printed it out.
Yeah.
That paper and I filled in the missing blanks, and that's what I did because
so you're ahead.
It sounds like because what it sounds like is that we're supposed to do it from scratch and then add some more things on it.
Only if there's something there that wasn't. If you found something that wasn't there, you can add it in.
Is it necessary or just?
I've already submitted it. I'll give you the comments. Don't worry. This is a first pass, you guys.
Okay.
I'm speaking, having done this for decades. Just try and stumble through it somehow. Diego, props to you for getting it done so fast. That was phenomenal. And it's absolutely no problem. There's no way to get it. This is why I told you there's so many revisions, because you can't get it right the first time or the second time or the third time. And then finally, when the show opens, hopefully it's when we start going into dress rehearsals, this is a thing I give to the dressers so that they can see, hey, here's what's going to happen. This person is going to change from this character, this character, this character, and you have this many seconds or pages to do that. Right? So this is a functioning thing, not only from costume design, but also for the costume crew. So however you did it, and because you've done it already, you're getting additional information about how you might do it differently next time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Excellent. So when she says, may I introduce my fiance, Andy Reed, and we know Andy is Dorothy's fiance. Okay. So we know a relationship. And we're going to see they're getting introductions done. I'm sorry, we have to rush. They're leaving. We're staying at the Normandy for a couple of weeks. Why don't you drop around? Okay, so that's going in my head. Maybe the next time we see Dorothy and Andy, we'll be at the Normandy. I don't know if that's true. MFX. That's a door slam. Okay. Then Nick and Nora chat. They're still in the dining room. And he's going to the phone booth. We're not separating that out. Okay, and you hear him talk, and you know, again, this is a cue that it is an older play because he says, I want Skylar 40962. Skylar, you used to not have just digital digits for your phone number. You had actually an exchange. So this would be Skylar and then the number. And then we have sound effects, phone ring, phone being picked up. And now we have another character, Julia. Okay, and Julia is somewhere else. So we're on page 6. And let me see where that puts Julia. So Julia is going to be right there on the end of page 6. Let's see. So you're just going to muddle through the best you can, doing, indicating underneath those page numbers if a character's on that page, and then up at the top if a character is where they are and is there an event that happens. So let's look at the infamous page 7 just quickly because we have a lot of things that happen on page 7. So here we were page 6 where Julia answered the phone, and then going into page 7, we have Joe Morelli coming. Well, who was that? Julia and Joe now are in a different scene. Okay, that starts page 6, 7. Julia and Joe are in a different scene.
So how do we know where they are?
Where do you think they are?
They're in the Matrix.
They're in the what?
They're in the Matrix. This is like the Matrix of plays, like a play within a play.
No. This is not like the Matrix of plays. Trust me, I have been in the Matrix play. This is not, but, and you can just, you can say, you can identify it however you want because you may not have enough information right now to actually identify it. Right? Maybe it would Julia's place. Maybe you want to say it that way first. Maybe you want to say, maybe there's a couple of other things you could say about it. Maybe you're going to say it is Wyant office. Maybe it's, let's just keep going, okay? And let's see if we go back to another place. So let's try and figure Julia Wolf, Morelli. And we now know Nick Charles is what? He's a detective. So we're finding out a lot about relationships. We're finding out a lot about who does what. And we're immediately kind of wondering about this group because Morelli says, who is he and what does he want? Because he's a detective. Did anyone see Wyant come here that night? The night you and him had the scraps. So there's somewhere, right, where there was some sort of argument. So if Nick Charles is going to pop up around here. So now we're at the top of page 7 with Julia and Joe. We find out that Joe has a record. So he is a criminal. And I ain't itching to come face to face with no dick. And a dick is a slang for detective in the 1930s. So Julia is Wynant's secretary. Are they in Wynant's office? All right. And then we go back to cafe sounds. So we're running back to the cafe for a little snip with Nick and Nora. And then we have a phone ring with Asta barking at the end. Then we have on page 8, in this particular script, we have somewhere else. Mr. Macaulay, he's on his way up. So now they're in the hotel. Okay, so they're drunk at the cafe, 6 martinis. And then we have a time frame. Ooh, what hit me? The last martini, meaning we've now had a time lapse between the middle of 7 to the bottom of 7. And then 7 to 10, they're in the hotel room. So I'm going to stop talking about that for now. And I just wanted to have a fuller discussion so that you can just try and do the best you can, get the cross plot filled in, put in your little X's. There's all kinds of other things that I do sometimes, you know, but that's basically everyone's wearing one costume with some other things if they become a different character. So I wouldn't worry about that. Just give everybody an X and then try and figure out the best you can about what place they are. If there's a little bit of a time gap, like we just saw, 6 martinis, and then, whoa, what hit me? So meaning there's some kind of time frame because there was a realization that happened. And then there's a very different conversation. So we can tell that they've gone into a different place because there's a knock on the door, which means they're not in a dining room anymore. Okay. So is that helpful? And does it give you a tiny hint about how layered costume can be? Or maybe give you a little bit more information about it. So what I'd like to do, and we will take a break at 11 and we'll come back at 11:10. And then we're going to do a drawing thing. And so at the end of that, I'll give you some information. I'd like to look at what role does costume play in the theater? So let's take a quick screen share at this because we're going to do a little game. Okie doke. So this is on your Canvas site. What can a costume tell you? What role of costume in theater? What do you think the role of costume in theater is? We've just been talking about a lot of different things. The reason why I like to start with the cross plot is it kind of gives you an idea of what costumes can do, right? What can a costume tell you? When you walk in a theater, what do you see? So let's take a look at this. When we look at this page, this image, which is from a play at La Mirada Playhouse, down just south of Los Angeles. What are you looking at?
Looks like a train.
Time period.
Okay, and?
A different time period.
Different time period.
It can also they're like high class.
There's some maybe high class. What's telling you that is, what do you think that is? What's telling you that?
Well, for there's like the suit, the men's suit, the one that's further away from the group.
Yep.
Yeah.
Suit, very well fitted. Mm-hmm. So
also like the
women here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of tell what each of their jobs are. I mean, the guy in the suit on the far left, he looks like he's a business dude, but like the woman that like sits at like the table close to him, like she looks like she might be in day clothes or she could be like in like more secretary clothes. It's kind of hard to tell with how the image just isn't like blown up as much. So I can't really see exactly what she's wearing, but that's better, much better.
Notice that
it looks like it could be a regular day clothes because it looks like she's like wearing a sash or something. And then there's
hold on a second. You know who that is, Kit? You know what that is, Kit?
No. A sling.
Wait, is this play The Murder on the Orient Express?
Yes, excellent.
Yeah.
So she's wearing a sling because her arm is injured.
Yeah. I was gonna say, she's wearing a sling.
There you go. So look at that. I mean, amazing
It's a
amount of
nice
information
sling.
you're getting. You've already guessed the play. I mean, of course, the train gives you a hint, although there's a train in a couple of other plays. You get that they're kind of high class. And I will say that this is not spectacular costume design. I would definitely not put this up on there for that, but it was a professional production, so I'm just letting you know. And as you rightly said, we can figure out this guy has some official business as a uniform person. So what are you guessing he is? Sam?
Oh, well, I was gonna say something else about the costumes, is that each character has their own color. Like it's all under the same style of clothing, but each character has a different color assigned to them, sort of.
They're a little bit color delineated. These people are all sort of cool colors. There's a hot color and a warm color, and the other guy's warm color. Uh-huh. So I feel I have a lot of issues with this particular picture because no one would have their knees exposed in this time period, right? So I can pick out all the bad things about this costume design, but I think you are right about, see all these cool colors, and then there's absolutely no question who we should be looking at. I'm going to zoom back out. I mean, this guy is so perfect. He looks like he's a mannequin. We just rolled him out on stage, right? So yes, we get where they are because of this very luxurious environment, but really that's not what's telling the story. These are who's telling the story. And we know he is important because everybody's looking at him. And we can tell station of life, everything. Let's go on down. We're going to look at some projects from the theater group. And I want you to count how many images you see, because I can't, this is a screen, it's a slideshow and I can't stop it. So just count the number, not that, just count how many pictures you look at, okay? Oh no, that's not what I want you to see. This is not what I want you to see. I am so sorry. Let me go back to here. Wait a minute, where's my, oh, I had a link for us to go to. Okay, I apologize for that. Well, we only have 5 minutes, so let's look at the role of costume in theater, this little PowerPoint. Oh, it's in the PowerPoint. So we're working with the Thin Man to understand the role of costume in theater, okay? And in a way, it's somewhat like Murder on the Orient Express because it's a period play. It is a comedy. Murder is a sort of a thriller comedy. And we're going to use this as a convention. We're going to, so that we have one topic against which we can bounce all of our ideas, which is what is costume on the Thin Man. So if there wasn't a costume, would the actor be naked? Why not have actors bring their own costumes? What would happen if the actor brought their own costume?
Well, it'd probably be more contemporary.
Yeah,
But
it wouldn't
basically,
match.
enough information on what to bring.
Yeah, well, I can tell you in the previous picture, it looks like some of those people brought their own costume, doesn't it? Because we can go to here. I mean, this girl could be today. She's wearing a sweater and a skirt, right? This girl, as the skirt maybe is a little longer and the sweater is, I don't know, oh, maybe it's a blouse with a collar. Here's a wrap dress, right? So, you know, if you don't control this very carefully, these guys could have come in the tiny micro suits that they wear, their jackets up to here and their pants up to here, right? It would not help delineate. But what's another bigger thing about if they bring their own costume?
It probably wouldn't match the time period because, the stuff back then, like what they wore is probably not available now because, obviously, what we wear is different compared, like what we wear today is pretty different to what they wore back then.
One of the biggest reasons, and thank you, Diego, that's absolutely correct, what we wear now. But if we're doing a contemporary play, you still don't want the actor to bring their own costume because you need to have visual unity. If somebody brings a bright pink dress, you would not be looking at the guy in the suit, right? The costume designer has to carefully control where the eye is going to go. So that worked very well in the previous picture because we saw everyone was looking at the guy in the suit. He is the most well put together. His suit, he's not wearing a gray suit, a brown suit, a black suit. He's wearing a suit of color and it has stripes in it. It's very well tailored. It looks like it's luxurious fabric. So what does the costume tell the audience? And this is the beginning of visual storytelling for us. What is the first thing you see when looking at a stage? So I want you to think about that when we look at these production pictures of the theater group. They're going to go by fairly quickly, but if you have a pencil, just try and jot down a couple of things that you see. So here come the pictures. Here they are again. And one more time. Okay. So how many different production shots did you see?
5.
5. And what was the first one? What do you think the first one was?
Was it Harvey or did I get in there?
The Music Man.
The Music Man was first. And what can you tell me from remembering what you saw about the first picture, which was Music Man?
Bright red costuming.
Bright
but
red costume.
everybody else was pretty neutral.
And everyone else would, wow, excellent. Good eye. That was Kit. So there's a guy in the middle with a red jacket and everyone else is neutral. Okay. What's the next picture you remember? And what are your guesses?
Was it West Side Story?
Okay. It wasn't, but that's okay. It's a group of people. Just describe the picture. If anybody else remembers that picture, describe a group of people. And I know why we'll talk about why you think that. Anything else?
They were like dressed up like in a dance kind of style with like strapless dresses that were.
Yep, so it's some kind of dress up scene.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And there's a person wearing red in the middle of that one too. And then what's the next one, Colby?
Harvey.
Harvey. And why do you know it's Harvey?
Because it has the rabbit in the frame.
Has the
That's how
rabbit
I-
picture on the wall. How
Yeah.
many people are in that picture?
There were 2, I thought.
There's 2 people in that picture.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the next one? I don't expect you to know it.
Was it Grease?
That was the one before. Grease was the one before that somebody thought was West Side Story. So the next one is a show called One Man, Two Governors. And then the last show is also a period piece. They're all they are all period shows called Games Afoot. Now we're going to look at them again and look at how many humans are in the picture determining what you see. So here's Music Man. Here's the Music Man. There's the people in the background. Here's Greece. Again, we're looking here. Here's the center of the frame, Harvey. One Man, Two Governors, people playing instruments and some kind of entertainer. And the Games Afoot, clearly some kind of mystery, okay? And brought up that this was neutral. Everybody else is neutral. This is celebratory. Well, she's gesturing at the rabbit. A motley group of characters there, kind of a wealthy group of characters there. Okay, so when you look at the stage, the first thing you see is probably the set because you're going in and you're looking at it before we start the show. But once you get into the play, it's the characters. And I will just talk briefly about that Music Man character. There was a premise in that production that the town had been deadened, had lost their life until Howard Hill came to town. And when he came into town talking about the power of music, as people touched him, they gained color, and their costume silhouette stayed the same, but they added color so that by the end we had a very colorful image. Okay, so that was very intentional, and that was still period appropriate. The things that you can tell about a costume, and by the way, you can go to this and look at that website, and I would recommend that, and it'll tell you a lot about the other things that we've done. So when, and we talked about this in terms of script breakdown, so what year is it? And Music Man is in like 1908. Greece is we did it just in 1959, so not in the early 50s with poodle skirts and not in the 60s. Harvey is in the 40s. One Man, Two Governors is in the 60s. And the Games Afoot is in the 1890s with Sherlock Holmes. So you could immediately tell the texture of the year. What month was it? Well, you can tell what are they wearing? Is it going to be, are they wearing a lot of clothes because they're outside and they would need to bundle up? What day is it? Is there an event? So we found that out in our play, The Thin Man. We know it's February 16th, but the event that they're talking about is happening on Christmas Eve. And is everything unfolding on Christmas Eve? So how long do we stay in that holiday? Just a question to ask. And how are we going to tell this visually? And that's a question for the director, is how are we going to, how important is it for the audience to know it's Christmas Eve? Is something happening in the play that Christmas Eve is kind of, important, like a present gets delivered and it's kind of misunderstood and other things like that? Where are they? How does costume define the geography? So if they're in a dining room, are we going to see the doorman in his uniform? Do we have somebody bringing martinis that's wearing an apron? Do we have other sorts of ways we can tell who they are? What about when we switch to Julia on the phone? We're very urban in this play, and they are in an interior, a very different interior than the dining room. Now we're in an office. And we're also with criminals. So there's kind of, maybe it's what's happening there? Is it a seedy office? And what are the living conditions? Clearly, Nick and Nora have a ton of money and they can be the highest society set. How are we going to, and we need to show that because anybody that can afford to have 6 martinis in a row has got to have some pretty heavy pockets. Who are they? We talked a little bit about the characters that inhabit the story. So we know that Andy is connected to Dorothy. We know that Nick and Nora are part of a family tree. Sometimes I actually draw out a family tree to try and track who belongs to whom. How is the socioeconomic status indicated? Often by the accessories that they wear. You can put, and if you look again at the Murder on the Orient Express, you can put everyone in about the same dress, but give them a fantastic necklace, excellent ring, a beautiful watch, a wonderful hat. And you can tell that. You can tell environment exactly, like more of like atmospheric environment even. It's going to be very different in a train than it is in an office. What is the job? For example, the man in the uniform in Murder on the Orient Express would have been easier to identify had he been wearing a hat. Then we would have known, is he a policeman or is he the conductor? And we really couldn't tell the information from there, and maybe that's important for us to know. We can tell the health of the character, the woman in the sling. We can tell the man on the far right in the Murder on the Orient Express, he's older. Is he in good, robust health because he looks very hale and hearty? Is he leaning on a cane because he may not be in good health? And what age are they? And this, sometimes age indicates status. Sometimes age indicates high status, but it can also indicate low status depending on what their socioeconomic status is. By a certain age, we expect someone to have attained a certain kind of appearance or a certain kind of wealth. So those are things that are critically important. What is the function of a particular character? Who is the protagonist? And this is just another way to say who's the most important person in the play. Who drives the play forward? Josephine. Question.
Yeah, I don't have the answer, but I have to go now for the other.
Yeah, that's fine. You can just exit out.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
Bye.
And then we'll be doing our lab. So who is the protagonist that's driving the story forward? And who is the person that is preventing him or her from moving the story forward? And this is a question that one of my directors always asks. Whose story is it? And I just want you to think about this for a minute and think about, is it Nick's story? And how does the story look from his perspective? So, the buzzword that we have behind this is looking through Nick's lens, and I kind of grate against that kind of thing, just like, let's unpack this idea, because this is something that, we've been doing in theater for decades. It's just, whose story is it? If we look at it from Nick's perspective, is it really Nick's story? What if we look at it from Nora's perspective? What if we look at it from Asta, the dog's perspective? So who's leading the story? Who are the leads? This is very clear in this play. Who are the supporting characters? Who supports the story? And how do they do that? Where are their stereotypes? Can you think of one in Thin Man that we've just read about today? Anybody? If you raise your hand, I'll call on you.
Joe the criminal.
Joe the criminal, exactly. That's going to be a stereotype. So we want our audience to kind of feel, even depending on who's playing him, how are we going to indicate that that's a stereotype? He's in there for a reason, right? What else? Anybody else that we see that could be a stereotype there? How about the doorman? Because he's really iconic. It's like he's the gatekeeper for the dining room. And then who are the people that show the village? Like everything else that's happening in their world. We're making an entire world of the play, not just a scene and not just this particular story, but it's always richer if the audience feels like something's happening outside of this story that they're seeing. And in this case, this is double layered because you have the radio play that we're telling, and you have the interaction of the actors who are speaking the lines of the radio play story. Okay, let's pause. I'd like you to get a pencil and a paper so we can do a little drawing experiment, and we'll finish out that way. All right, we're going to draw a male Etruscan figure today. Etruscan is from 10 BC to 1 BC. And you'll be looking at a really phenomenal site first. And I hope, let me just make sure it's open. Yeah, okay. So the first thing, and this is why it's so amazing that we're in digital, because you can actually go to the Museum of Metropolitan Art in New York. So this is the metropolitanmuseum.org. And you can look up Etruscan art. And remember, we talked about seeing all different kinds of vessels. So this one's a terracotta vessel with a henna drawing on it. This is a terracotta vessel in the shape of a cockerel, and this is engraved. Here is a gold and enamel bowl earring. Look at how there's the earring post, and look at how incredibly intricate it is with this inlaid stone. The reason why I'm showing you this is because we often look at pictures like this and then try to draw this without having any idea about what all of the very lush images could be that could be taking place. Look at this incredible mermaid image, even in possibly, 1 BC. So this is the Metropolitan, a really incredible amount of, sorry, my fingers are doing something on the touchpad. A really incredible amount of art, a bronze statue. So this means it was carved. It was plaster was made, bronze was a positive was made, then a negative mold was made around that, and then put back together, and liquid bronze was put into it to create the statue. So it's an incredible process to actually get this to be a statue, and that it stands up is even more amazing about the craftsmanship. Another vessel to look at, both of these vessels give you incredible feeling for color in this period. Look at the close-up of this bronze chariot. Look, you could even draw, here's a figure you can draw in here. So I just want you to look at the wide range of primary research that's available, and try not to just go to the cheapest and easiest thing. This is a carved amber bow of a fibula. So on the back is a pointed long metal piece, and this hooks the garment together. Fibula is definitely one of your vocab words, and we'll have that also in Greek and Roman, but it's a pin that holds the garment together. Here's a set of, oh, stop it. This is like so sensitive. Let me just cruise over here. I want you to see the jewelry. So here's a set of jewelry. And look at the inlaid stone in stripe and solid that you see, semi-precious stones. And then a silver gilt ring. So again, look at the symbols inside this cartouche. A perfume vase that's even a carved figure. A pendant, so this would be a hanging object that would be possibly on a chain. And then I found this one really fascinating. This alabaster cinerary urn, of course, which is a funereal. The reclining woman, and they give you incredible definitions of what they are. Whereas a heavy torque necklace, we're going to look at this up close. There's her heavy torque necklace. She has a fan in this hand. Okay, this is the top. So the ashes of the dead person go in there. And then look at the scene that's on the front of it. It's so rich with an Amazon, you know, I don't know, overtaking this particular poor person, and this warrior overtaking this woman that's on the ground. And then this is an angel figure with these wings beyond here. So giving the person whose ashes are in there a pathway to the other world. But I just bring up the Metropolitan Museum because it is an incredible way to look at really primary research that just is so rich and gives you so much texture and reality to what you might be drawing. This frieze depicts two pairs of Greeks fighting Amazons. Okay, so exactly as we discussed. Okay, let's move on to our Etruscan that we're going to look at today. So this is the one we're going to, are you guys looking at a man now with a pointed beard?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to be very careful because sometimes they don't always shift. So this is the one you're going to draw today. Let's work on this guy for the next 25 minutes. You're first going to get his pose on your page. And I'm going to help you do this with a couple of things. Those of you who want to go ahead, no problem. But if you draw a plumb line from here straight down your page, that will help you orient where the weight of his body is. And you can see that he's on a diagonal from that. He's thrust forward. So it helps you position where he is on the page. Diego, do you have a question?
Yeah, remember that balloon method or something, like how many balloons you had to draw usually?
Yeah.
Like 8.
Yeah.
Will that work in this situation?
Absolutely.
How many balloons did you say like we had to draw?
Just make 8 balloons.
8
And
balloons.
you can make those 8 balloons go straight down your page. Like, and remember, one is the first, we call them heads. So 1 head, 2 heads, 3 head to the waist, 4 heads to here, 5 heads, 6 heads, 7 head, 8 head to the heel. Look how nice and big they draw his feet. So absolutely, your balloons can go straight down the page, but then you can kind of angle them to go this way, and you can see how your balloon would go here, and then you'd have a knee. Your balloon would be on the back for the calf, and you have the bent foot.
Do we have to do the exact same pose, or are we supposed to like make it forward facing or?
You can do the exact same pose.
Okay. Thank you.
Those are often found in profile. It is a typical viewpoint of Etruscan art and humans. And in this particular thing, one of the things that's identifying is the pointed beard. So yeah, usually we like them, you know, front or 3/4, but sometimes it's valuable to look at a 3/4 over the shoulder look. And the next set of redrawings we're going to do, and I'm going to stop talking after this, so you can just focus on it. And I'm going to not talk for 5 minutes, but the next set of redrawings we're going to do will be related to the Thin Man. So those will be in your assignments. Okay, that's 5 minutes, and by now you should have a pretty good sense of the human figure on there, just in outline form. I want you to not rush through the drawing. Take all of the time that we have and look at your figure on the page. And then I'm going to come and look through over your shoulder, and I'll do that in another 5 minutes. So you have 5 more minutes to try and get your figure on your page, and then I'm going to come and I'll invite you into a breakout room so I can see what you're doing.
I have a question real quick.
Of course.
So his feet are drawn like abnormally large, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so do you want us to try and get that?
You can correct. Remember, the feet are 1.5 times the face or hand. When you look at primary research, you're going to see a variety of drawing mistakes. And if you can't correct, don't worry about it. Draw what you see. If you can correct, go ahead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it just looks odd because they're so disproportionate.
Maybe the viewer is closer to the feet than the head and he's looking up at them. You know, it can be something of perspective, but I suspect it's just a, you know, less sophisticated drawing. Okay, I'm going to open a breakout room, and let me know if you want to come in. Let me see if I can actually do this, okay? Okay, Kara, you want to come into room 1? And Clement, you can come into room 2. And then I'll come back and get you guys. Now, I hope I'm going to stop the recording. Wait a minute. Sorry, I did stop the share instead of the recording.